Before diving deep into setting up lighting, we need to finish a boring but necessary viewport preparation in Blender. That is how I usually go about the Blender viewport for lighting work. I have two windows, one for cycles rendering at the bottom and one for material preview at the top. We can arrange these windows however we want. By the way, a new window can be created by clicking and dragging at the corner of the screen like this, and then collapsed back as easily. We can think of the material preview window as our working space, our secondary monitor with some generic HDRI environment lighting preset. It doesn't really matter what kind of the world texture we choose there in the settings, as long as we get a clear, informative view on the objects in the scene without our creative cycles lighting getting in the way. It can be any of the default HDRIs included in Blender. The rotation of the environment and the overall strength of this generic lighting preset can be tweaked there as well. This isn't our lighting setup, it's just meant to be informative as our secondary monitor. So I think I'll just go with this second HDRI called CarTR.EXR. Well, technically there is an option in there to enable the scene lights as well as the scene world to make this viewport correspond better with our rendered view. So if we'll go this route, we'll have our realistic cycles viewport at the bottom and the real-time Eevee approximation at the top. But that's not what I usually do. I like my lighting preset within the material preview to be decoupled from the final lighting in the cycles view. Alright, we want our cycles rendered view to show the in-camera picture, so we can press 0 on the numpad to jump straight into the camera view. And we will keep it like that for the rest of the tutorial to see what camera sees with the rendered mode activated. Talking about the camera framing, we have one option worth mentioning, which is Passepartout within the camera settings. In my opinion, cinematic shots and cinematic lighting require some kind of a frame, and Passepartout allows us to do just that. Limit it all very nicely to what the camera sees. Jumping into the render settings, our render engine of choice should be obviously Cycles in there, with the GPU compute selected as the render device. So basically that's how we roll, that's our user interface for lighting work. The interactive Cycles view at the bottom showing us the final result with all the lighting calculations in place, which runs reasonably fast to be able to see all the updates, not in the real-time manner, but close to that. And at the top we have a good old preview of our scene without lighting, let's put it like that. One more thing worth mentioning is the Show Overlays button, which hides the user interface in the rendered view. The UI elements can get super intrusive, especially if there is a lot of stuff going on in the viewport, so it's good to know about the existence of this button. And finally, if you see any errors related to GPU rendering, it's worth checking the Blender Preferences, the System tab, and check if your video card is displayed there. I have NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 with the optics selected as the render device, so the GPU compute option is active for me, just like it should. I don't think we'll need this temporary light source. Is that everything that we need to check? Let's see. Right, to make the viewport slightly faster, I usually limit the amount of diffuse and glossy bounces to 2. That is quite a minor adjustment though. And as a matter of my personal superstition, I usually bring up the amount of the indirect light clamping, all the way to 30 or 50. You know, I'm so afraid of losing some precious light interactions. Then Ctrl B defines the render border. We can use it to draw the rectangle around the camera view to constrain the rendering only to that area. And going over to the output properties, we will see the render region checkbox appeared. This shouldn't be overlooked because this can really speed up rendering. As a quick note, both the viewport and the render samples have been set to 128. There is also a quite fundamental denoising checkbox worth mentioning. The settings available there are once again restrained to what GPU you may be using and the preferences you highlighted earlier, basically optics or Intel denoiser, so on and so forth. Real-time viewport denoising is such a miraculous technology. It is so effective at suppressing the fine grain at the cost of some viewport fluency, unfortunately. It's always a trade-off between latency and, let's say, clarity. And further down the road, we will definitely enable denoising, but for now, let's just check the render denoising and leave the viewport intact. Another thing worth mentioning is that this particular blend file features some drivers for controlling the practical lights. Don't be scared though, we won't be doing any driver maths. It's just a control located in the practical lights collection. After finding this little thing in the drivers subfolder, we can jump into the object settings, scroll all the way down to custom properties, and there we will find a bunch of controls. The prefix, for example, L_01 defines the light, and then there are 3 properties to tweak for each light: the hue, power, and saturation sliders. This is a pre-set up nice little helper for this demo scene, so we don't have to dive deep into the material properties for each practical light that we have. Play with it if you want, but don't bother with it right now. We will need this for the practical lights section further down the road. When we said that this lighting setup will be cinematic, we were serious about it, you see? We have even got some practicals ready. For now, I'm gonna zero out the power for each light, which will effectively turn them all off. So 0, 0. As a quick reminder, the blend file can be found and downloaded from the resources section. If you cannot find it for any reason, feel free to drop me a line, or feel free to join the students chat on our Creative Shrimp Discord channel and ask any question basically, or help other students with it.